A1, A1, A1. Yeah, truly. Cooler and I'm flyer too. Jam. Cooler and I'm flyer too.
Excuse me. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show that's cool and flyer too. A1FOREVER Sports. I am Chris Tipmore, here with an exclusive interview with a special guest, somebody I believe who knows more about the Atlanta Hawks than I do, but I'm working on that. I would like to introduce to everyone and my subscribers, Locked On Hawks podcast, Brad Rowland. He also does his man of many hats, actually, but that's how I found him. So welcome to the show, sir. Can you formally introduce yourself to my subscribers?
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Brad Rowland. Like you said, I do host the Locked On Hawks podcast. I'm also a writer for Dime on Up Rocks, covering the NBA and college basketball, NBA draft, etc. I write for Sportsline, all kinds of stuff, like you said. But I appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us on the show here. First question I would have to you, like, how did you get into this sports field? Like, what was your passion for sports? Did you play any form of sports or anything like that?
I grew up playing basketball. I was not the best athlete in the world, and maybe I knew that ahead of time, and maybe kind of started leaning towards away from playing because I knew it was going to be my thing. But yeah, I've always loved sports. I grew up loving sports, and kind of just wanted to get into it. Always wanted to be. I was the guy on the message boards in high school and that kind of stuff. Like just always talking about sports with somebody, and basically, once I got to college or late college, I started kind of writing on my own and just wanted to get some stuff out there. No money, no huge audience, just kind of grinding away and trying to get my thoughts out there, being consistent. And got some good advice about just kind of writing every day and making yourself better. And ended up growing that, and that got kind of found. And basically the rest is history, kind of just doing what I could possibly do, saying yes to a lot of stuff, and ending up still making it to where it's obviously a huge part of my life now.
Okay, that's great, man. That sounds wonderful. You just actually told me a few things I need to know without you even realizing it. So I appreciate that myself. Okay, so moving forward, I would like to know, or was you always a Hawks fan, or just a basketball fan in general? How did you get involved with just talking about the Hawks and just Atlanta sports, period?
Yeah, I definitely grew up an Atlanta sports fan overall, and especially, diving into the Hawks as I got older as well. It's a little bit different when you start doing it for work. Like I always say that, like I'm not really a Hawks fan now in the same way that I was then. I think I've been covering the team for more than 10 years, and it's just different when you're covering them every day and going in the locker room. You gotta have to be working and not be as invested emotionally. Like you just can't kind of do that anymore. But yeah, I was a season ticket holder in college. I tell the story a lot, but like I definitely used some student loan money to buy season tickets during college, which is very funny when I had no money to be doing that. But kind of transitioned from doing that into writing about the team all the time. But yeah, big Atlanta sports fan, Braves. I'm still a Falcons fan. I never really covered the Falcons directly, so that's probably the team that I'm still like the biggest fan of locally because I never actually covered them on a regular basis. So kind of have that raw fan experience, but with the Falcons. But certainly grew up across the board. The one thing I don't have is a local college team. My dad played at Michigan, and I grew up in Georgia, but I kind of grew up wearing maize and blue. So I've always been a Michigan guy. So I don't have a local Georgia or Georgia Tech or Georgia State allegiance. But other than that, everything else is local for me.
I understand that. Definitely respect on that. Well, me personally, man, I'm Atlanta sports, everything. Man, I even like Georgia Southern, Georgia State. I'm just all around Georgia myself. Like I said, born and raised myself here. So speaking of the Atlanta Hawks, October 19th is right around the corner, about 12 days away, 13 or so. So we're coming up on it. I want to get your take on your expectations as far as coming into the season right before my next question.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting year for the Hawks. They'll be better than they were last year. I'm pretty confident about that. We'll see how good they are. Part of that is how good the East is. Like it's a very loaded Eastern Conference. That's not something that's kind of a popular thing to be saying at this moment, but it's because it's true. There's a lot of good teams in the East. I think this Hawks team in former Eastern conferences, 10 years ago would have been a pretty clear top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. But now the East is a lot better, a lot deeper than it used to be. So we'll see where they actually land. I do like the Murray addition. bringing him on, bringing more talent in around this roster. They don't have quite the same amount of depth, though, that they did before. So we'll see how it all shakes out. They look good today in their preseason opener as we record this. That's encouraging as well. But I'm definitely feeling pretty good about the Hawks. Not like they're a title contender probably this year. They're probably still another year away from being in that real mix, the very, very top of the league, in my opinion. But they should be a very dangerous and good team this year.
Yeah, and you just touched on something else that I wanted to touch bases because you're correct. They do not have the same depth that they had did before, but I believe they do have a good team going into the season. I would go on record saying that I thought they maybe should have added like one more big piece if they could, but I also understand that it takes two to tango, and if you don't have a trade partner or someone who's willing to agree to your terms, it's just unable to happen. I wanted to ask, since you already talked about the depth, we've already covered that. I wanted to ask, okay, in the preseason game today, Hawks preseason game, on the perimeter, do you see any trouble?
I think that if this is a big if they didn't have Bogdan Bogdanovic, who did not play today and he's injured right now, coming back from surgery over the summer. If he was not available, they might have some questions. I think they need his shooting pretty badly. Aside from Trey, who's just a different kind of player, Bogdanovic is very obviously the best shooter on the team. Like AJ Griffin's really good too, but he's going to be he's a 19-year-old rookie. I'm not sure how much he's going to play. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, Bogdanovic, I think, is a really key piece. Like defensively, he doesn't help them too much, but his shooting is very important. I'm interested to see how they handle things if he's not around. They're kind of small as well. Obviously, with Trey and DeJounte, Trey is always going to be small. It's never going to change. And Murray is a big point guard, but he's not very big if you're playing at the two all the time. Aaron Holiday's a pretty small guy, so they have some questions. I think if Bogdanovic is there, then I'm not really worried. If he's not, then a little bit of shakiness. Obviously, that might sound crazy because they have maybe the best backcourt in the league on paper with regard to Young and Murray. Definitely a top 3 or 4 backcourt in the league, but the depth around them, the size of that backcourt, there are some questions there for sure.
Right. You're absolutely correct. That was one thing that I am worried about as far as I'm not worried about DeJounte's ability. I mean, I believe he showed that today with 25, 9, and 8 preseason, but regardless, you still like to see those reps in the game. And I just believe that, going forward, his size will help on defense, switching off and everything like that. But he is a little thin, but I believe he makes up for that with athleticism and everything. He's going to make the defender work on the other end on the court too. And speaking about that perimeter thing, that's another thing I was worried about as well too. Kind of like the perimeter defense seemed a little slack in the second half. That's just my personal opinion. But what do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, better than it was a year ago, but it had to be. Like, they were really bad defensively on the perimeter last year.
Yeah, like 20, something like that, right?
Yeah, that's even overall. Like, they were probably better in the front court than they were in the back court. But yeah, I think Murray helps a lot. That's one very helpful thing. I think Justin Holiday is going to be a help for them defensively. He's not a huge difference maker, but he's a solid vet defender. But anytime you have Trey and if you throw in Bogdanovic, those are two guys who are shaky, let's just say, defenders on the perimeter. And, Hunter's a quality option. Murray's a quality option. But, they're going to have some growing pains, I think, to kind of figure it all out on. Obviously, we're all focused on the offense. For the most part, the discussion's about the offense with Trey and DeJounte. But figuring out how it all works defensively is huge because, like you said, they're 26, 27 in the league last year on defense. Correct. You just can't be that good if you're that bad defensively. That's a very simple way to say it, but you can't be a top 2 seed probably if you're a bottom 5 defense. It's just really hard to do that. So they have to be not great defensively, but better. That's for sure. There's a lot of pressure there.
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking if they can get in like the kind of like the top teams, like maybe at least like 13th, 14th defensively, I feel like that's some good shape considering the fact we know where we're kind of going to get on offense. Trey's going to be Trey. DeJounte's looking very promising. Like, that's definitely can be his running mate. But one of my biggest questions are 2 people that's in that starting lineup. That's DeJounte. That's DeAndre Hunter and also Clint Capella, believe it or not. Because I believe last year and his numbers wise, just strictly talking about numbers, not presence, it did drop. It did drop last year compared to the year before then. So I'm worried about him coming into this season. I know people, Hawks fans that I've spoken to and everything, wanted to actually make the trade for Aiden and, for Capella and everything. But you see how that all worked out and everything too. So yeah, so for Hunter, I know no deal still yet as well too. So you have that going into it. So he maybe end up betting on himself. And then also with Capella, do you think that Capella will be able to, I guess, have a consistent motor for us all season long?
Yeah, I think what I've been saying for a while is like that Hunter is the X factor on this team. And that doesn't mean that he's the best player. He's not. They have Trey, they have Murray, they have Collins. But Hunter, both because they're going to invest in him on some level, they already have the draft pick. And you talked about the contract extension not being there yet, but he's the only guy at the three. Like he's their primary option there. And if he's not healthy or if he's not good, there's a lot of swing because the Hawks can't be their best selves without him being good and available. Capella, there's a little bit less risk because they have a Kongu on the roster. But I do think that Capella is really important. I mean, when they've been at their best the last 2 years, it's been Capella anchoring that defensively. 2 years ago, he was awesome. Last year, I agree with you, he wasn't quite the same guy. Still pretty good player, but not quite the same. So it's really interesting to me, like to see what he looks like. I've actually talked to him about this and people around the team about this. He wasn't healthy last year. He had the Achilles situation coming into the season, and I wonder how much that affected him. He seems to be pretty excited about being healthy and having a full offseason. That doesn't mean he's going to suddenly be Shaq on offense or anything like that, but I think that Capella is a really important player. Like he's an awesome screen setter on offense. He's a really good rim protector defensively, rebounder, etc. So they have depth there with the Kongu that's really helpful, but they're still going to be at their best if they have Capella being really, really good like he was 2 years ago.
Right. I believe Okongwu is going to take some steps forward, steps forward too. I really believe so. I really like Okongwu. He gives effort, man, and it's just you can't replace that. And I really like him. I believe he's going to take a step forward. I'm really interested, me personally, seeing what Jalen Johnson will bring to the table, just because, it's really going to be his time to shine. It should be no reason why he's not getting playing time this season, right?
Yeah, I think he's going to play. Last year, I at least understood it. I know Hawks fans didn't like it. I didn't love it either, but at least understood him not playing. They had other options. They had Gallinari, who they invested in a lot of money, still had Collins. But this year, Gallinari's gone. They've basically come out and said that Jalen's the backup power forward. He didn't make the trip to Abu Dhabi because of illness, but it's not supposed to be a long-term thing. He's supposed to be fine. So I expect him to be the backup power forward. I don't think he's going to play as much as Gallo did because Gallo kind of did a lot of different things, at least early on. But I do think that Jalen is going to be playing every night on some level, and we'll see what he looks like. I've always liked Jalen Johnson. That was a great draft pick, really good value where they got him.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's got to prove it. He's not really had to prove it at the NBA level at this point. So we're all kind of thinking he's going to be pretty good, and so am I. It's just, for me, until a guy does it, you don't know for sure at the NBA level. So we'll see how they sort of handle that. But as long as he plays defense and gives effort defensively, Nate McMillan will play him. That was the concern coming out, I think, is that, as a rookie in particular, defensively, it might not have been great. So we'll see how he looks on that end of the floor. But a lot of talent there for sure, like a former top 5 prospect at one point in high school and a really, really talented guy. So he'll definitely play this year. We'll see how much.
Okay. That's right. All right. I haven't asked this question yet, but here he goes. Coach Nate McMillan. What does Coach Nate McMillan have to do in order to get the message across to the players as far as this coming season? We're having new pieces around. It's not the same people. It's not the same depth. We've already covered that. Yes, some familiar faces, but it's some new variables to the equation. So what do you think Coach McMillan has to do as a coach to really just get this team in sync early, so we're not be behind the 8 ball like we have, like, let's say, last season?
Yeah, I think he's been talking about that as an urgency all training camp. Like, they know they started out last year, dug themselves a hole, and that was the big problem for last year, was that they were so far behind the entire way. And I think part of that was out of his control. Part of that was that a lot of guys were not playing last summer. They were coming off of injuries. They were coming off of rehab and all this stuff. And the guys were just not quite themselves at the start of the season. But also, every single game matters when you're in the middle of this super difficult Eastern Conference. And I think Nate's going to have to figure out the right buttons to press. I think we saw already today, even in the opener, he played guys a lot. Like, the Hawks played their starters more than teams usually play their starters in their first preseason game. Trey played 31 minutes. Like, that's a lot of minutes for their first game, and I think it's because they want to go ahead and set the tone early on to be like, all right, we're up and going. We're not easing into the season. We're going to get out there. We're going to go and be ready to go opening night. I think because of the last 2 years, even 2 years ago, people kind of forget this. The Hawks were a 500 team most of the season, and they got super hot at the end of the year. But they've had 2 straight slow starts, so they know that they can't do that again. They can't afford it, and I think they're going to try to fix it. I don't know if it's going to work, but in terms of internally, like, he's going to have to figure out how the Trey DeJounte thing works fast, because usually that could take time. When 2 guys are around, like, it could take some time, and they don't want to take their time. They want to win a lot of games, and that means winning early and winning often.
Exactly. I believe the same thing. I was happy that Trey and DeJounte was able to get some summer games in too, playing alongside each other. But I did notice that it was a lot of minutes being played by the starters, and that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, it's the only thing I can think about is getting that chemistry together, because it has to happen fast. We cannot, as Hawks fans, as Hawks, whatever you are as far as with the Hawks, we cannot afford to see the Hawks were having a slow start coming into this season, especially after all the expectations that we had coming into last season, and then to have it end in the first round like that against the Heat this year with Murray and guys having more reps and getting more playing time, having the Holiday brothers, I believe will be serviceable. Like, I don't believe it's going to be major, but I think it's going to be serviceable. They did good today for the role that they was filling. So going forward, I want to know this though: the Atlanta Hawks can be a top 4 seed if they do what?
I think there's a lot of ways to do it. One of them is what we talked about earlier with the Hawks just getting to be like a league average defense. I think if the Hawks were around average defensively, that would be a path to be a top 5, top 4 seed, because they're already going to be so good on offense that we all kind of believe in the offense. They're number 2 in the league in offense last year. Basically, if you're number 2 in the league or number 3 or number 4 in the league on offense, as long as you're a top half of the league defensive team, that's a recipe for 50-ish wins and a top 4 seed. So that's part of it. And I think also they got to stay healthy. I mean, that goes for every team in the league, but the Hawks don't have a ton of depth on this roster. Like, there are some guys long-term that you like AJ Griffin is a guy I like a lot long-term, but he's still going to be a rookie this year. Right. Tyrese Martin, we saw get in the game today. Like, they don't have a lot of depth at certain spots. I think on the wing in particular, they can't afford much in the way of injury, whether it be Bogdanovich or Hunter. Even Justin Holiday is a guy. He's like not a star, but Justin Holiday is going to be valuable. They need Justin Holiday. So it's kind of a weird situation. But I think between those 2 things, like, just improve defensively, still be good on offense, which I think we kind of already know is going to happen as long as Trey is Trey. But just health and defense for me.
Yeah, I feel that's, man, I favor that. I definitely favor that. I've said my feelings are the same way as far as the injuries, because we know it's always seemed to happen. Maybe Trey may get an ankle, Bogdanovich a knee, Hunter. I don't want Hunter to miss any games this season, like 0. Like, if it's possible. It's just because I really want to see everything that Hunter is. It's like he's still kind of a mystery, especially the way he performed in that Heat series last year. That last game, that was 32, 33 points, man. It was just like, is this what you can be? Is this like,
it was a teaser for sure. It was a teaser.
Right. It was like, man, come on, what are you? And Collins, I mean, I really need a nice, double. I'm not gonna say 20 and 10, because that is just too much. It's not enough basketball to go around. But I definitely want him to be a double kind of guy. Capella definitely double, rim the protector. And I just want to win, man. It's time to get some rings down here as fast as we possibly can. The Braves are already, doing their thing. Shout out to them, 5-time division champions. And the Falcons, we're working on some things, changing the culture, everything as well. Atlanta Hawks, man, I feel like you up. You up. It's time for you to go ahead and do some things, man. I'm ready. I know you're ready as well. Will you be attending the opening night?
Yes, I will. I will be at the opening night. I'm actually going to make the trip to Birmingham as well for the Hawks. Don't have many preseason games at home, which is not any fun for people like me. But I'm going to drive over to Birmingham for the last preseason game, and then I will be at the opener. We're all counting down, less than 2 weeks away now, 2 weeks from yesterday, as we record this on Wednesday, so on Thursday. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It should be packed house, I'm sure. Not the most high-profile game. They're playing the Rockets, who probably won't be very good this year, but when it's the home opener for a good team, it should be rowdy in there anyway, and I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah, I plan to be in the building myself. I can't wait. That morning, I'm going to be ironing my clothes and everything, just all nice and proper. Smile on my face. So if I can ask just one more question before I let you go. For
Sure.
up-and-coming, inspiring guy like myself, sports casting, highlighting, just everything just dealing with sports. I do my own editing, just everything. I do everything myself. So for a guy like me, could you say, or what kind of motivational thing could you tell me to basically, I just keep going, when days when I feel burnt out?
Yeah, I mean, number one is that I think everybody feels that way at some point, which is, it could be encouraging to you. I know it's not any fun in the moment, but I think everybody gets there at times, and you kind of just have to push through it. I do, I've kind of been on my own in a lot of different ways too, and kind of have that experience. Like, I do all the editing for my podcast, and it's, and the booking and trying to figure out who to get on the podcast, and it could be a lot, and I totally get it. The big thing is to just know that consistency is huge. I mean, that's something that they tell you from the very beginning of podcasting and writing and editing or whatever, is like, what you want is when you start building an audience, you have to feed them with whatever they're getting from you. They have to be knowing that they're going to get it from you. And that kind of, at least for me, that's what has kept me going a lot of times, is like, people are expecting this to be there. And I don't know who those people are or how many there are, but if I have listeners or readers, like, in my mind, it's like, all right, I have to give them something at whatever time or whatever it is, whatever your schedule happens to be. That, at least for me, has pushed me to be like, all right, people are relying on me to do this, and now I'm going to do it, and whether I want to or not. So you have to love it. Obviously, I think you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't already. But it's definitely one of those things where everybody has those moments when it's not a whole lot of fun. You kind of have to just grind through something. You're tired or whatever, but you just got to kind of have to do it. And if you're, every once in a while, if you're going to take a day off just to have a self break, nothing wrong with that at all. But then you got to get back on the horse the next day and keep going. So everybody does it. That's kind of the way I would say it. Like, even people that have done a lot more than I have will probably tell you they've had some nights when they didn't want to do it, but you kind of have to push through.
Right. And I figured you did, a lot of your own work yourself. That's another reason why I kind of asked you that right in here and there. Figured that you did. So I really appreciate that. I take that to heart, and I'm definitely going to keep going, because I know people are counting on me. I have a few subscribers, well, more than just a few now. So it's just, every day is a grind. Every day is a hustle. So just got to keep at it.
Absolutely. And you got to love what you do to do it. Otherwise, people will figure that out too. If you don't love what you're doing, people are going to notice that you don't love it, and the quality won't be as good and all that stuff too. So yeah, pour into it.
Well, thank you so very much, Mr. Brad. And I hope to have you on the podcast again one day soon.
Have to.
Until then, I like I said, grateful, appreciate it. Peace and blessings to you. I really do appreciate it. And let's go Hawks. I'm ready for opening night. I can't even lie to you at all. I'm ready for it. I had a circle on my calendar and everything, so I'm ready.
Yeah, we're almost there. I appreciate you having me. This is fun. I'm happy to do it anytime.
Oh, thank you so very much.
A1. Yeah, truly. Cooler and I'm flyer too. Jam. Cooler and I'm flyer too.